What's up? It's Playstand. Geez. Yeah, the fan's gonna mess with the audio, but it's really hot right now. Hence why I'm in this very cool Ditto tank top. So I'm leaving the fan on. Hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. I'm trying to move the mic away from it. But anyway, we're doing another cEDH event recap. This one, just from the start, this one went a bit better than the last one, although the bar is pretty low there. So it was another event at Tapped Out Gaming, which I guess you should kind of expect at this point. The cat is up here. The grand prize was a Grim Monolith, as you could probably guess from the title of the video and of the event, but there was an additional incentive for entry because the store would give away a foil mana crypt for reaching 32, and that ended up happening, and it's a pretty cool thing to help get people entering and into the event. Well, let's start by doing a quick recap of the deck. As usual, I'm playing my sisay deck. It's about the same, but I did do a couple changes since last time. I took out some of the graveyard cards like Honest Rutstein and Luris, just because drawing into them or playing them at the last event and having nothing good in the graveyard didn't feel good. I still think they're good cards, but I just wasn't vibing with them after the last event, and I wanted to try... where is it? I wanted to try Nadu. 2 pips, 3 CMC, just a good value legendary, and Displacer Kitten, and Lightning Greaves. Displacer Kitten is one that I'm like very on the fence for. It's a pretty good value card, but and it also does combo with 3 Fairy, but it's just not quite there, I think, for me. Same thing with Lightning Greaves. I do think it's a good card in the deck. I've never really seen anyone interested in it, but it can protect sisay, can protect combo pieces, and a lot of the combos do revolve around giving some kind of mana dork haste, so I don't think they're bad. And then Nadu as well, I don't think is bad. It's just good value, but you do kind of struggle to actually trigger sometimes. So I don't think I would play like any combination of 1 or 2 of these cards, but I think with all 3 in the deck, it does kind of raise the average card quality and likelihood, and like the average card quality and the synergy between the cards, and just the likelihood that they will like be good and useful. So anyway, that's the new cool stuff in the deck. New cool stuff in the deck. Didn't actually, spoiler, I didn't actually get to use most of those, but anyway, round 1 was against another sisay player, a Yeva deck, which is interesting to see, and Obnixilis, Captive Kingpin. Ob went second, had a pretty strong turn 1 with a Mana Crypt and a Vexing Bauble, so nobody had access to free spells. I had a decent hand and board, but we had to respond to the early Obcast since it was starting to get big, and he had an Oppo agent that took one of my tutors for Dockside, so that did also hurt my board. He also entombed a Walking Ballista, which is half of a combo, so the other sisay player decided to copy the Oppo to prevent him from searching for the other half, which is good because it stops him from winning and kind of slows him down a little bit, but also 2 Oppo agents out means sisay doesn't really get to do anything. Keycat, you are in the way. Move. Golly. I see you. Unfortunately, though, that didn't really end up mattering because he ended up top decking an All-Will-Be-One. We delayed the loop for a turn by preventing him from pinging, but in the end we couldn't stop him from starting the loop again and then just ending the game. But even though I lost, the hand still felt pretty solid, and like without the Oppo agent, I think it would have been a pretty solid win for me, or at least a solid game. But my round 2 was against Kinnan, Inala, and Tivit. Those are all some pretty strong and fast decks, especially Inala with the early turn combo potential, and Kinnan just with the rocks, and it's kind of difficult to interact with his abilities. And as you might have guessed, Inala threatened to win pretty quickly with the classic Spell Seeker and 1 black mana available, but unfortunately for them, and luckily for us, because their list was missing a few key pieces, they weren't able to get the turbo win. But even though they couldn't get that early win, they were still a turn off from starting a loop and just comboing out, so the table had to politic pretty hard to save resources for stopping them. From there, the game played pretty slow and political, especially since there was a Blind Obedience and a Dauntless Dismantler out from the Tivit, but eventually I had a few untapped treasures from a Lotho, and I used a Sakashima the Imposter to copy the opponent's Kinnin, which was mana positive by 1 and gave me exactly enough mana to try and combo. I had to think a little harder about my line because of the Blind Obedience and Dauntless Dismantler. I also had Nicol Bolas and Aminatsu in hand instead of the deck where they normally would be, but I did eventually get the win by getting Tyvar and Selvala from sisay activations, and then playing the other Planeswalker pieces and flickering the Tyvar to keep untapping the Selvala, so I got around the blind Obedience effect. I was really happy to get the win because I felt like I had to fight for it somewhat and think about the line a little bit. And then the politicking, I felt like it just made it a really good, solid, competitive game. Like that's kind of what you want from cEDH. It wasn't like king making or anything. It wasn't super turbo combo, no interaction. It was a good mix of playing the decks and politicking and, just keeping track of resources and stuff like that. I think even if I lost, I would have been satisfied, but I was pretty happy to get the win in that one. Round 3 was against a blue farm, Zerda, which is nice to see again, and unfortunately I can't remember the other one. I want to say it was a blue farm, maybe a Kenrith, one of those decks, but I had a turn 2 tutor to play a turn 3 Dockside, and I put the Lightning Greaves on that, which felt good to protect it, because if it stuck around till my next turn, I had Emil and some other tutors in hand to go for it, but the blue farm player played their own Dockside, so I had to sack my remaining treasures. Then they played a Chain of Vapor, bouncing their Dockside and all their rocks, and it was mana positive enough to get an Ad Nauseam and a tutor, which allowed them to Thoracle Consult, winning on their turn 3, which is a bit underwhelming. Not a whole lot to talk about there, but it was nice to know that the hand was pretty solid for me otherwise, like if it stuck around to one more turn. Round 4 was against Rogsai, Magda, and Tivit. I had a strong start with a Dork or two, but we got Toxic Deluge, which kind of reset my board. I did end up rebuilding a bit, but we got Culling Ritualed, and I really couldn't interact with it because if the Culling Ritual didn't resolve, Magda was just going to take the game, so I had to let it go. Eventually, the Tivit player cast Tivit and swung a couple times. They just started getting a ton of value. They didn't immediately draw into any combo pieces, but they were just getting a lot of treasures and clues and value from the commander. Eventually, they did get their Time Sieve to secure the game a couple of turn rotations later. Not too much to say here. My hand was pretty strong, but my board getting reset twice and having to stop the Magda from going off, kind of all our resources ended up being used, and then we just couldn't really stop the Tivit player at that point. Final round for me, because there were 5 rounds before the cut this time, was against Blue Farm, Kenrith, and Brea, so 2 4 colors and a 5 color deck, so lots of value available for them. I had a Vamp Tutor in my opening hand, but the Kenrith player had a turn 1 Ristic, and I didn't draw into a 3rd land, so I kind of just sat on it, watching other people's boards develop, kind of waiting for a good time to play it. At some point, the Brea threatened an Oppo agent, but they let me fetch twice to cast a Blind Obedience because the Blue Farm and Kenrith player were going pretty strong. I planned on playing that because I felt Docksides coming, so then when they play their Docksides and their treasures enter tapped, I can play my Dockside and they won't be able to sack in response. And I was right, they did end up playing their Docksides for a healthy amount of tapped treasures, but then the Oppo hit, so I couldn't actually tutor for my Dockside, and I didn't have any mana to do it in response. So I just had to hope for a 3rd land to eventually play a Phyrexian Metamorph I drew into, but I never actually got it, unfortunately. From very early, the Kenrith was threatening an Underworld Breach line, but with the Blind Obedience and Brea casting a Filter Out to reset boards, we were pretty safe. And eventually Brea got their own Dockside and Displacer Kitten, and they ended up taking the game and after getting infinite mana. Unfortunately, I didn't really do much in that game, but I did have the win available in hand. If some things went different, like the Oppo didn't hit or I just was able to get a 3rd land, I would have had the outs for the Dockside there. So honestly, I still can't say the deck felt bad. Still think the deck felt solid and the hand felt solid. Overall, even though I went 1-4, 1 win and 4 losses, most of the games I had pretty good hands and I could see the line fairly early with what I had. So the deck and the hands felt pretty good. I just didn't get there for most of them. Nothing super noteworthy here, although there was a Nadu player in top 4, which is interesting to see. Lots of talk about that deck and the commander. Overall, I'm still pretty satisfied with my deck and my performance in this one, so I'm looking forward to the next event. I am planning on attending Fishbowl in a couple weeks, so hopefully that goes well. Definitely have a good, solid, hopefully lengthy recap video for that. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you later.